Is food in America even safe? Hey everyone, I'm Abbey Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. In today's video, I'm going to be answering some controversial big food questions about ingredients readily available in the American food system that have been banned in the EU. We have some major tea to spill, but if you're not already subscribed, smash that sub button. It really does help me out. And also check out my description for some links to my free ebooks. Also, a big thank you to my colleague Erin Davis for assisting on the research of this video. Erin is a fellow RD and diabetes educator, so if you're looking for some one-on-one support, you can check out her link in my description below. Okay, let's hop in here super quick to tell you about today's sponsor, Neoplants. So we got some asthma in the family here, so air purification has really always been top of mind. And this was before I found out that the air you breathe indoors can be a lot more polluted than the air outdoors. So that's why I was just so excited to discover NeoPX by Neoplants. This is the first bioengineered plant microbiome system designed to capture and recycle indoor air pollutants 30 times more efficiently than a standard houseplant. This was invented by PhD scientists to target 3 of the most harmful VOCs found in your home, like everyday compounds that are emitted from furniture, paint, cosmetics, gas stoves, which is of course what I use. So that's always really been a concern for me. And this is based on 5 years of research and development to enable NeoPX to clean VOCs from your indoor air and turn them into useful matter like sugar and amino acids. And it's very reassuring to know that it's being fully tested in best-in-class air quality labs. It's honestly such a cool concept. So NeoPX consists of marble queen pothos, which is this really beautiful plant that's being tested to guarantee performance, a self-watering planter designed to optimize air purification, and most importantly, a 6-month supply of pollution-eating good bacteria that live in your plant. So every month you just kind of pour the power drops onto the plant soil to supercharge NeoPX's air purifying capacity. Now they're currently shipping across the United States with international shipping on the way, and to celebrate the launch, Neoplants will be offering my viewers an extra power drop sachet. That's 7 sachets and an extra month of clean air. So if you want to check out this nature-based air purifier, check out the link in my bio, neoplants.com/AbbeySharp, or scan the QR code on screen and the offer will be applied automatically at checkout. All right, so to set the stage, there is no shortage of online wellness crusader charlatans going off in the grocery store about the dangers lurking in American food. And one of the regular talking points is that America's food system is super unsafe and packed with poisonous ingredients because the FDA allows ingredients in that other countries like Europe or even Canada have banned. I mean, yeah, that sounds scary as f. But as we say here, there's a lot to unpack. So why are these additives allowed in America but banned in Europe? So first of all, the question that I want to address right off the top is how could an ingredient be deemed safe in one country and be banned as a hazard to public health and safety in another? I get it. That seems super sketch. So popular theories and assumptions online tend to range from reasonable concern to full-blown conspiracy. Is the American government getting pressure by the food industry to keep cheap, bad additives in play? Is the American government actively trying to make us more sick to keep us weak and easier to overcome?
You've lost your mind. You've lost your goddamn mind, Charlie!
As you guys know, this is not really a place to come to argue conspiracy theories when the real explanation as to the differences in America and European food additives comes actually down to how we analyze and interpret their safety. So Europe uses a hazard-based approach, whereas the United States uses a risk-based approach. And you may think that one or the other is better, just depending on your general outlook on life. But Food Science Babe offered a really amazing example in one of her many posts about this online: formaldehyde. It can definitely be hazardous to humans, but our bodies also produce it And we also find it naturally in things like apples and pears. So should we ban all sources of formaldehyde in our food system? I hope not. I love pears. Like, they're one of my all-time favorite high fiber fruits. Pears do not cause a risk. She also did another post with a ton of great examples, like driving on the road as being a hazard, where yes, there is some potential that it could do harm. But driving on a road that's like in a blizzard or while drunk is definitely a more legitimate risk. And the argument for a European's hazard-based model is that it's simply just more strict, right? Like, if you never have pears or apples, then you can never come in contact with a potentially dangerous chemical like formaldehyde. If you never drive a car, you're not gonna drive drunk or get into an accident. Obviously, these are some more extreme nonsensical examples, and the additives I'm about to go through in a moment do have some legitimate concerns upon which these bans are based. So I'm not denying that for someone who wants to very greatly reduce their exposure to any possible endocrine disruptor or carcinogen, this approach may make good sense. But in contrast, America uses a risk-based approach. So a risk is the likelihood of harm from a hazard. Risk equals hazard plus exposure. We're better able to assess the dose that makes the poison. And considering that theoretically anything can be carcinogenic or hazardous to health in some way in a big enough dose, this takes into consideration how much one would have to consume or come into contact with to cause harm. The FDA then sets a maximum amount for food manufacturers to help manage the risks in the food system without a complete ban. But let's take a look at some examples of popular additives in question. First up, titanium dioxide. So titanium dioxide is an artificial food dye and a whitening agent that is often used in candies like Skittles, pastries, especially with a little white icing on top, gum, coffee creamer, low-fat or non-fat salad dressing, and even in some dairy products like cottage cheese to give it a more glossy, bright white color. It's also found in things like paint, sunscreen, cosmetics, and toothpaste. Cue a food babe moment comparing like ranch dip to sunscreen. But I digress. While America's FDA and Health Canada have deemed titanium dioxide safe in amounts found in food products, Europe says hell no. So one of the reasons why titanium dioxide has made the rounds on #anti-big-food TikTok is because it was listed by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, as a Group 2B carcinogen. This means that it's considered to be possibly carcinogenic to humans. If you recall, when there was that huge media storm happening around aspartame being called a group 2B carcinogen, all of the science communicators came to the table being like, yeah, that's not actually a super strong case. You know what else is a class 2B carcinogen? Asian pickled vegetables, aloe vera, and progestin, which doctors prescribe daily via the pill. This level of classification was based on experiments that linked the inhalation of titanium dioxide to lung tumors in animals. And while this may be very relevant to humans who work with a lot of paint, perhaps, it doesn't really have anything to do with its use in food. But that's not actually why the EU banned it as a food additive. Their ban was based on how cells cultured in a lab were affected when treated with titanium dioxide. But it's actually very hard to apply these experiments to eating like a bag of Skittles because the titanium dioxide was not food grade, nor had it been ground to produce nanoparticles, which is kind of part of the ongoing concern. There's also been some research linking these nanoparticles to a disruption in the intestinal barrier and normal enzymatic digestion. The problem is that all of this research has been done on mice, rats, or in a petri dish, and there is yet to be a population-based study that revealed a causative effect of titanium dioxide on gut impairment of any kind. So in 2016, the European Food Additives and Flavoring Panel was prompted to evaluate the safety of titanium dioxide. And it concluded that the absorption of orally administered titanium dioxide is extremely low, its bioavailability is also very low, The vast majority of an oral dose of titanium dioxide is eliminated unchanged in your poop, and less than 0.1% was absorbed by the gut lymphoid tissue, distributed to various organs, and then eliminated at various rates. You would have to consume like 1,000 times more titanium dioxide to reach the quantity employed by a lot of these rodent studies. But still, Europe decided to ban it in 2022 as a major precaution since they just could not eliminate concerns about its potential toxicity. Next, since we're on the topic of food coloring agents, I want to talk about more colorful options like synthetic yellows and reds. The most notorious food dye of our generation is probably Red 3, which is basically banned across the UK and the EU. In the States, it's banned in cosmetics, but not in food. The exception being in California, which recently passed what they're calling the Skittles ban, which will effectively ban a handful of food additives, including Red 3, as of 2027. The concern around Red 3 across the nation is largely in light to early animal research linking it to cancer in rodents. But the good news is that a lot of brands that were using Red 3 have since switched over to Red 40, so we see a lot less of the latter and more of these newer food dyes in our food system. But even that isn't without its controversy. A lot of influencers will point out that dyes like Red 40, Yellow 5, and Yellow 6 are also banned in the EU. In reality, though, they are A, just listed differently, and B, often come with a warning that states food colorings may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. So for example, Yellow 5, which is found in candy corn, Mountain Dew, and Gatorade, is also known as E102. Yellow 6, which is found in Doritos, Funfetti Cake, and Jolly Ranchers, is E110. And the most notorious of them all, Red 40, which is found in flavored yogurts, Jell-O, and popsicles, is known as E129. As for the warning, I actually don't disagree with that approach, considering that unlike the research on cancer, which is basically all done on animal models in amounts that we wouldn't actually expect to consume in food, there is some solid evidence on behavior concerns in humans. So one review of the literature analyzed 27 different clinical trials, and they looked at children exposed to synthetic food dyes and adverse behavioral outcomes like hyperactivity and poor attention. 16, so 64% out of the 25 challenge studies identified some evidence of a positive association, and in 13 or 52% of the trials, the association was statistically significant. Simply put, these studies do show a possible link between food dye exposure and adverse behavioral outcomes in children. There also does seem to be an association, though not a causal relationship, between food dyes and neurodivergence like autism spectrum disorder and ADHD. Again, food dyes do not cause autism or ADHD, but it's very possible that they may exacerbate symptoms in the neurodivergent population more so than neurotypical children. The good news really for everyone is that there are a number of growing brands who are actively phasing out synthetic food dyes and bringing in colors made from fruit or vegetable extracts. Even Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, Smarties, and Rainbow Goldfish are now using natural colors. As a neurodivergent girly who is personally quite sensitive to food dyes herself, I do like that the solution means that we can have fun colors and eat them too. But next, let's talk about BHA and BHT, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, but you can see the full words up on screen right here. So these are commonly used as antioxidants and preservatives in cereals, gum, chips, and different vegetable oils. The EU currently considers BHA and BHT possible endocrine disrupting chemicals. So while they're still available in the United States, it has been banned in both food and cosmetics across Europe. So what led them to this decision? Well, it all started with an old study from 1985 that found giving BHA to rats induced stomach cancers. This then prompted the IARC to label the additive as a class 2B carcinogen. Again, this lumps it in with things like aloe vera and everything else we just went over. Later research in 2020 did find some level of toxicity of BHA and BHT under in vitro and in vivo experimental environmental conditions. But when this was tested in humans, as it was in a population cohort study in the Netherlands, they actually found no significant association between stomach cancer risk and normal intakes of BHA and BHT. So at this point, we still don't have any strong evidence in humans that these additives consumed in normal food amounts would cause stomach cancer, which left the FDA to maintain that these additives are safe for use in foods as long as they're present below the standards they set in parts per million. Finally, I want to talk about the notorious yoga mat chemical, ADA, aka azodincarmonamide. Azodincarmonamide. Yeah, that's it. If anyone remembers Food Babe, she almost single-handedly took Subway down for calling out the chain for using an ingredient that is also found in flip-flops. But basically, in food, it's used as a bleaching agent and dough conditioner in baked goods and breads to make the dough more elastic and white. And while Subway did actually phase it out in 2014, it is still available in America while it's banned in Europe and Australia. The concern with ADA is not that it's just like a big word you can't pronounce, or that it's found in non-food products, as some misinformed health influencers love to call out. It's that when it breaks down in dough during bread making, it forms substances called semicarbazide, or SEM, and urethane. Urethane has been linked to tumors in rat studies, but there's no research done in humans, and SEM was found to cause some endocrine disruption in rats in some research, but not to be carcinogenic in others. Regardless, the FDA has continued to evaluate the safe use of ADA in foods, and in 2016, they analyzed SEM levels in 250 different bread products, and they compared that with data from 2 different sets on regular food consumption patterns. This was basically to take into consideration the average dose of SEM that an American can expect to get from a normal diet. And based on these findings, the FDA concluded that ADA is a safe food additive when used at the levels specified by their regulations. The bigger risk actually seems to be as an occupational hazard for those handling and potentially inhaling the chemical versus the amounts that you would consume in like an Arby's sandwich. There are also a handful of other common additives that get featured in the media and by clean eating charlatans that are technically still available in the US but are banned in the EU or UK. But it's also worth pointing out that this kind of can go both ways. There are foods that America bans due to their analysis of the risk that are still available elsewhere. Raw milk is a really great example. It's banned in most states and also in Canada because unlike something like ADA, which we have no evidence of it causing disease in humans, we know that microbes in raw milk actually do kill people. And you can watch my whole video on raw milk right here if you're interested in learning more. Raw ackee is another one that's banned in the States but available elsewhere because if it's not ripe enough, it can cause dangerously low blood sugars and even possibly death. All that said, a very common sentiment from Americans is that they sometimes feel sick from the food that they eat in America, but when they travel abroad, particularly to Europe, they can eat these same foods while feeling great. The most notorious example of this is pasta consumed in Italy.
Okay, you know how everyone says that when you go to Italy, you never get bloated from pasta like you would in the US?
It's true. A lot of people say this. And I want to address this claim in light of everything that we've just learned about America versus European food additive standards. Because it's not that Italian pasta doesn't have gluten. It absolutely does. And according to research, the gluten content of wheat actually hasn't changed that much in the past 120 years. So differences in growing techniques also can't really be to blame. It's also worth pointing out that Europeans have the highest incidence of celiac disease. So their magical wheat isn't saving them from this condition either. It's also not the GMOs used in America, since America doesn't even use GMO wheat. So could these specific additives that are banned in Italy but available readily in the US be to blame? We don't really know. But it's also worth pointing out that a lot of countries in Europe actually import American wheat. So what you are eating in Europe may have actually been grown in the breadbasket of the United States or Canada, and you wouldn't even know it. There are a lot of potential factors at play. I cannot get to all of them, but still the mystery remains. Why the can we eat, pray, and love our way through Europe eating pasta twice a day, but we bloat up like a balloon after a few bites at the Olive Garden? Well, here are just a few possible explanations that are actually far less sinister than our food being just like straight up poison. First of all, there is a number of things that set vacation life apart from regular work life. You're walking more, you're sleeping better, you're less stressed, all of which can significantly impact blood sugar levels, digestion, and bloating. You're also taking your time to mindfully chew, enjoy your food, and listen to your body rather than like scarfing down a burrito in rush hour on your way to a meeting. Like that is also going to improve your digestion. And of course, there's definitely something to be said about the bounty of local fresh ingredients in places like Italy, which may require less salt, fat, sugar, or other additives to taste great. But that says more about the local agricultural opportunities and limitations of a given country, not necessarily whether or not the food system is dangerous or safe. I want to just close this off by saying 3 important things. 1, a clear case can be made that the health of Americans is not good. It's definitely worse than in a lot of other developed countries, and I fully acknowledge that that is a problem. But the reasons for this are complex and multifactorial, most notably the dismal healthcare. The type of additive in your coffee creamer is highly unlikely to be the sole driver of this trend. It may affect how your gut feels on any given day on an individual level, but from a population health standpoint, it's not really public enemy number 1. One of those problems may be just an overconsumption of highly processed convenience foods, whether they use a dough whitener in them or not. So the other problem with this narrative is that it paints like a health halo around highly processed foods when they omit 1 or 2 questionable ingredients. Again, we don't see these kinds of additives in apples or oranges. They are found in highly processed convenience foods. And the absence of like a food dye in Doritos bought in the UK or EU doesn't make the Doritos a health food. As we've covered, none of these additives are going to be the cause of anyone's demise in moderation, and the best way to limit your cumulative exposure would simply just be to reduce your reliance on highly processed foods, both here and when you're across the pond. This is really my personal approach. Like, while I'm not scared of these additives, I also am mindful to limit my exposure simply by choosing more whole foods over processed foods and enjoying things like Skittles or Doritos in moderation. And on that note, folks, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please keep it kind. I only communicate the science. I do not care to get into like a political debate or any conspiracy theories on my page. So let's keep it light and evidence-based if we can. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, be sure to give it the thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!